Hello and welcome to another episode of Atlanta Film and TV's Featured Artist Conversation. I am your host, Mandisa Johnson. Today we are having a conversation with Cristofher Griffin. Hailing from Columbia, South Carolina, Christopher is an actor known for his roles in Bride Hard, Hanging with the Taylors, and Another Christmas. Hi, Christopher. How are you today?
How you doing, Mandisa? I am doing splendid. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm glad it's the weekend, but I'm good.
Same, same.
Could you share about could you share with us about who you are and what you do in film and TV?
Okay. Um, I am from Columbia, South Carolina, born and raised. I got into acting, I would say around my junior year of college.
Okay.
And from that point on, once I found out I had a passion for it and that I could potentially make a career out of it where I could get paid for it, I just decided to see what how far I could go and just the first couple of years of trying to become a professional actor. They were great, but then at the same time, it was a little bit frustrating just trying to find my footing and going about how to get an agent, how to find acting classes. And this was before, this was before social media became what it is now. So I wasn't in the heart of it at the time. I wasn't in LA. I wasn't in New York. Atlanta was still in the early stages of becoming what it is today in regards to the film industry. So it was a very trying process, but I managed to find my footing and was able to start, I would say, officially start my journey into acting. And I've just been going uphill ever since.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So I know you kind of maybe have did this in your last question, but can you take us on your journey of how you started to where you are today?
Yeah, let me see. So, like I said, I started out in college.
Mm.
I ended up having to well, in my undergrad, I needed a minor to go with my major in order for me to graduate. And at the time, there were two classes left, and the one I ultimately picked was Theater 101.
Okay.
So one night, I'm down in the theater department waiting for some classmates so we could go over a scene for class. And they were having auditions for a black box production of a play called Women in Wallace. And the girl who was directing, she saw me sitting outside and thought I was there to audition. And I was
Mm.
like, no, I'm just here waiting for my classmates. And I didn't think nothing of it. Classmates were running late. So I'm like, let me just kill time and just go in here and audition. So she gave me the sides. I auditioned with several people, gave her my email and name, information, all of that. Several days later, she emails me asking me to be the lead in the play.
Wow.
My first ever, I'm trying to, how do I word this? That was my first time ever being in a leading role on stage.
Okay.
And it was a very, very wonderful experience for me. Just being able to immerse myself into a role like that. I had six monologues that I had to memorize. And it was a challenge just trying to find that rhythm and that groove that would allow for me to remember these words with every movement that I made on stage. And as difficult as it was in the beginning, once I found my footing and just kind of went with my gut instinct on a lot of decisions I've made, I found it to be it just started getting easier after that. And then the opening night, I got rave reviews from my classmates, family, and
Wow.
friends, and all that. So that kind of put the spark in me to see how far I could go with this and pursue it on a professional level. Got my degree first, and then after that, after I made sure that was out of the way, I just started looking up agents, how to go about acting. 2010 was a good year for me because that's when I met, shout out to New Life Productions and LaShawn Hopkins in Columbia, South Carolina. She is my mentor. She is the first person who who basically she basically took me, I won't say took me under her wing since I was already, she treated me as an equal. She treated me as someone who knew what they wanted to do acting wise, and she just guided me along my way. Because of her, I found out about the Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem, which I've been regularly attending since 2011. I also discovered the Black Film Festival, which I think I think it's been in Miami for the last couple of years. But because of her, I was able to make so many connections and have so many opportunities to meet people who you would call the upper echelon of Black film and Black theater. So this journey that I've been going on, I've been coming across people and getting advice and life lessons and just what to do and what not to do in this business. So it's always been just, I've always been fortunate to just have, I've always been fortunate to have met her. I got the tongue tied for a second, but I absolutely wanted to give her a shout out. So hopefully she'll see this.
Okay. So I know you said you started your acting career in like your junior year in college, but like maybe I can like rephrase this question. Um,
Mhm.
did you have like any interest in the arts growing up? And if so, how was it nourished to facilitate growth?
So I didn't have, and it's weird because I didn't have an interest in the arts at all. I was an only child growing up, so I always had that creative streak within me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always fine when I wasn't outside playing with my friends. When I was indoors, I was always finding ways to entertain myself. Like my mom, my grandma, anybody, they would walk into my room, they would see Lego men hanging from the walls and dental floss. That's just, that was my imagination creating an entire story just using a couple of Lego men and some Thundercat action figures that I had. But my grandparents, they and their friends always rubbed off on me and had a huge influence subconsciously on my career, where I decided to go with my career when it came to the arts and acting. My grandfather, James Davis, he passed away 6 years ago. Before he moved up to Columbia, he was a booking agent in Sumter, South Carolina. So
Oh,
he was
wow.
always booking Black talent that would come and perform at clubs down there. And when he moved up to Columbia, he would always throw these parties at his house where everybody would be there, friends, family members, but it was an adult party. I couldn't go. I was like 5 or 6 at the time. One interesting story, and I said this on another interview I did a while back, but um, he was throwing a party one night and I snuck up and I wanted to see what was going on. So I'm walking through the crowd and this man that I had never seen a day of my life just picks me up. And I remember how deep and just boisterous his voice was. And he says, "Do you know me, little boy?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know you." And he just laughed and put me down. And I just went on about my way before my granddaddy found me and made me go back to bed. And I didn't find out until years later that it was Lou Rawls.
Wow.
Right. Yes. So growing up in Colombia, my grandmother would always take me, like she would always go visit her friends. And I remember one of them in particular, his name was C. Julian Parrish, Dr. Parrish, the first African American pianist to perform live in Carnegie Hall. And I never knew that I was around these people. Like she would always go off and talk to his wife, Mrs. Parrish, and like I would just be sitting there on the couch, and he would just come out of nowhere and go to the piano, and say, "Come over here, let me show you how to play the piano." And I would just sit there
Wow.
and just I'm just sitting there just listening, and all of this stuff it laid with me subconsciously. And when I would talk to my grandparents or my mom as an adult, and they would tell me, such and such or such. I'm like, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
So being
Wow.
around, I'm one of those people. I always believe that there are things, unfortunately, good and bad, but there are
Mhm.
things that are always influencing us, whether we realize it or not. In my case, I had a lot of people who were very, very deep into the art scene of Colombia, going as far back as the 50s and 60s, influencing me, and I didn't even realize it. So
Mhm.
I'm fortunate to have been around that, even though I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very familiar. I've had like some experience I'll share with you later. So we're going to
Hey,
take a break, but we'll be right back. Welcome back to Atlanta Film and TV's Featured Artist Conversation. I am your host, Mandisa Johnson. Today we are having a conversation with actor Christopher Griffin. Can you talk about some of the projects you've worked on?
absolutely. Recently, I've been doing some film work. Shout out to Stacey Davis Films, another black artist, black filmmaker from South Carolina. I met Stacey in late 2020 when my agent sent me an audition for a movie called Another Christmas, which was a sequel to a movie that was already out called Carolina Christmas. And I auditioned for a role in there, got booked, and we filmed in Myrtle Beach a couple of months after that. Then that actually paralleled into me getting a role on another project she worked on, a TV series on Impact Network called Hanging with the Taylors, starring Ryan Toby. Shout out to Ryan Toby, Sister Act, City High. That's the
Yes.
homie. Um, I ended up getting a role on there, and just recently, last October, we finished wrapping on an as yet to be titled Halloween movie that we filmed as well. So I've been pretty busy the last couple of months doing that. I've also got a movie coming out on Lifetime called Separated Sisters, which I filmed in
Oh,
Atlanta last year as well.
okay.
And last July, I was filming in Savannah for a Rebel Wilson movie called Bride Heart. 2023 was basically a busy year for me.
Yeah, I can tell. That's good. That's really good. We all have our good years, we all have our slow years. So I'm glad you had a good year last year. So in addition to
Thank
being
you.
an actor, you also work as a school librarian, which I think is a really cool job. I would love to be a librarian. I love books. Can you share with us how you balance the two?
I'm able to balance the two very effectively because being a librarian, I treat that as being an artist as well.
Hmm.
Being surrounded by a plethora of books and different genres. And that's also something that I did a lot of when I was a kid. I was always in the library a lot, just reading books, just finding ways to just stimulate my mind, whether it be in elementary school where I first learned how to read what was it, the Roger Hargrave's Mr. Men series. Those are the very first books I remember reading and learning how to read from. And then I would graduate to Dr. Seuss and then go all the way up to Goosebumps, uh, the boxcar, the boxcar books, things like that. And then when I got into middle and high school, I was introduced to graphic novels, and my love and passion for film started in 10th grade when I don't even remember what the class was, but I remember my professor, Mrs. Underwood. It was a film class, and I was one of the best students in the class because I had gotten so fascinated with the process of filmmaking and
Mm.
how movies work and
Mhm.
actors and things like that. So after that, I was always in the library during lunchtime, looking in the arts and film section and just finding books on Hollywood and acting and things like that. I never joined the theater club when I was in high school, ironically enough, because I was also one of those kids that I was very socially awkward too, because I was around a lot of, going back to our previous conversation, I was around a lot of older people. I
Mm.
was around my grandparents a lot. I was so used to being around adults, much older adults. I picked up a lot of older tendencies. I really had a hard time just fitting in with a lot of people my age. So it really did prove to be a challenge because I felt socially awkward and I didn't fit in. So because of that, I was always finding myself just trying to find ways to just, you know, take myself away from that bad feeling that I had of not feeling like I was accepted, and just finding other ways to keep my interest and just keep it moving.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So, what is one thing no one knows about you? For example, do you have a hidden talent that no one knows about?
Hmm, that's a good one. That's a good one because I'm a very blunt and open person. So everybody usually knows what's going on with me right then and there. I would say this: anybody that knows my mother knows that I'm every bit of her.
Hmm.
And even though I don't show it outwardly, I do have I have my mother's creative streak. So a lot of people, they automatically assume that, you know, I just started on this creative journey of mine, but I'm like, no, my mother is one of the most creative people that I have ever met. So I guess it's ingrained in my DNA because it just trickled down from her and instilled itself in me, which is kind of why I decided to go on this journey of acting.
Wow. Well, that was good. That was good. So, if I could travel back in time and speak to 18-year-old Christopher and tell him about all the wonderful things he would become, what would you least likely believe to be true?
18-year-old me would least likely to believe that I've had such a boost in my confidence to be
Mm.
able to get to where I am now. 18-year-old me always had somebody there telling me why I shouldn't do something, even though I wanted to do it. 18-year-old me didn't understand that there was a whole world outside of South Carolina. 18-year-old me didn't understand. 18-year-old me was scared to just take a risk and to just step out of his comfort zone. So just not being able to do any of that stuff and not being as confident as I am now, 18-year-old me would not have believed that.
Wow, I think a lot of kids that are just about to graduate, my daughter, she's about to graduate high school, would probably say the same thing. Yeah.
I
Uh,
would tell I would tell all of them, your life is going to be whatever you want it to be. As long as you don't half-ass it, you're going to be all right.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, she just got into her first college. It's today, Saturday,
Congratulations to her.
Thursday. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't think she thought she would, but I knew she would 'cause she had the grades. So, what is a piece of advice you would have for someone coming out of high school looking to pursue a career as an actor?
Hmm. Well, I'm actually mentoring a rising senior right now who reached out to me on Instagram. I won't, since he's a minor, I won't say his
Mm,
name or anything like that. But he reached out to me and his parents reached out to me. And I've just been giving him as much advice as I can because I was at that age where I didn't have anybody there to kind of guide me or to tell me what to do. And if I could do at least one great thing or good thing in life, it would be that, just to kind of tell somebody, you know, how they should go about it. But I basically told him, well, the first thing I did was I asked him, is acting something you're only looking to pursue
mm,
as a hobby or interest? Or is this something that you want to see yourself doing career wise for a long time? That's the first thing that's the first thing I asked him. And that's the first thing I would ask any senior coming out of high school or even college if they were interested in acting. Make sure this is what you want to do with your life because, you know, take the glitz and glamour out of it. It's hard work.
mm,
Everybody pays their due. Everybody pays their dues. There are going to be, like you said, there are going to be good years. There's going to be, I won't call them bad years. I'm going to call them slow years where you might not book. But even in those slow years, still pursue your craft. If you're able to find acting classes. Always freshen up. Always train yourself. Always keep your craft as as intact and up to point as possible, because you never know, that next gig that you might book, that might be your breakout role, and
Hmm.
you want to be ready for it. You want to be prepared for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think I've
You're welcome.
expressed that, and it's just like I've said it so many times to people, hearing it from somebody else, you're like, "Oh, she's not just saying that. She's really not hating on me." No, I'm not hating on you. It's the truth that you do have your years where you're just booking. 2019 was my year.
Mhm.
I do I have acted. I'll say I do not like auditioning, but you have your slow years. Um,
When people are upfront and direct and brutally honest with you,
mhm.
I've learned early on, that's not hate. That's not hating. That's them giving you a very, very endearing reality check.
Yeah.
Because it's this is gonna be a business where you're not guaranteed consistent work.
Hmm.
This is a business where you're not guaranteed that you're gonna be an A-list celebrity. This is going to be a business where you're going to eventually say to yourself, I don't care if I get to the Oscars. I don't care if I get to the Golden Globe. It's nice if I get there. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
nice if we get there. But as long as I am consistently booking work and getting gigs and getting residual SAG money,
Hmm.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
when you get to a point, that's why I say take the glitz and glamour out of it. Once you take the glitz and glamour out of it, a lot of people realize this isn't really what they want to do.
Mm.
It's only those people who are genuinely, genuinely die-hard professional actors that have wanted to do this ever since they were kids that
You're right.
are consistently doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So this kind of ties in slightly to the last question, but do you have any
Mhm.
gems you would like to share? GEM stands for Great Educational Moments with Movers and Shakers.
Great educational moments. I'm gonna do. Let me think, because I'm one of those people where I accidentally end up being very deep and philosophical, so I forget about it. But I will share. I'll try to share a few. Uh, don't be afraid to be yourself.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to be yourself. Understand who you are as a person. When you're in this type of business, it can eat you up alive.
Mhm.
So you have to have a strong sense of self in order to guide it, in order to maneuver through it. Understand who you are and be comfortable with who you are. Don't let anyone else influence you to do things that you know you that are going to completely cross your boundaries. Another thing I would say is, hmm, you got me thinking on this one. Another thing that I would say is, as many bad moments as you will probably have in this business, appreciate the great ones even more. You're going to hear a million no's
Mm.
before you hear that one life changing yes. And once you get that one life changing yes, appreciate it. Don't take it for granted. Be humble, be professional. If you do all of that, if you come to work, if you just like a regular job, come to
Mhm.
work on time, be professional, do your job, and always have a humble persona about you, amazing things will happen to you. Amazing doors and bigger opportunities will happen for you. So it's not always going to be, I'm not, I used to be like that. You know, I'm not booking enough. I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. And then I just had to sit down one day and I had to tell myself, okay, I'm not going to book everything.
Mm.
I'm not going to, I'm not going to get cast for every project out there. I know there are going to be instances where I audition for a movie, a TV show, or even a commercial, and I probably booked it. Well, not booked. I mean, I say that I probably gave a great audition,
Mm-hmm.
The casting director probably loved me. Several of the producers of the commercial probably loved me. But I could have reminded one of the producers of an ex, and they just decide, no, we're not going to go.
Right.
That's how the business. That's how the business is, unfortunately. But you can't let that prevent you from wanting to pursue anything else or go further. You're going to have a lot of downs, and you're going to have a lot of ups. It's just how you make it.
Thank you for speaking the truth. So I do have one question that just came to my mind. Where do you come up with your content that you use on social media?
Um, a majority of my content, I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes I'll be sitting at my desk, or I'll be sitting on the couch, and I will just randomly think of this stuff. I just just randomly think of this stuff. The only time where the only time where I will say it's not me just sitting around thinking about stuff is anything involving my mother. I
Mm.
know, I know the skit that we made was based on an actual event. My mother did fall at work, and I had to go pick her up, and my iPhone stays on shuffle when I put it on Apple Music. So as
Mm-hmm.
soon as she gets into the car, the next song that started playing was Donnie McClurkin's "We Fall Down," and she thought I did it on purpose. And I'm sitting, and it didn't help that I just laughed because I just realized, wait, this is kind of funny. So that my life, it seemed, I say this, it's a lot of stuff that happens in my everyday life. It is boring, it's mundane, but I make it funny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how most comedians are when you think about it. A lot
Yeah.
of comedians don't really tell jokes. They just take real life situations and talk about it and make it funny. And that's
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
My I got a lot.
I really like the one where you talked about the kid that came in to get a book, and I was like, oh my gosh, that
these
was funny.
these hands. I'm sorry, I'm still tickled by that because that's a common phrase now. These hands
Yeah,
means
yeah.
you will catch these hands. But I just, the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he was he took the book, he checked the book out because he thought it was a book about fighting. But what touched my heart so much was the fact that he actually checked the book out with the intention of reading it. So I'm like, okay, son, this isn't a book about fighting, but the fact that you came into the library to get a book because you wanted to read it, we good. We can work with that. We can work with that. Come here, let me show you this book on Mike Tyson. So it just parallels into him being able to find other books about boxers
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
The fact that he knew the phrase "these hands" was like, I don't know, some of the some of the stuff kids know. It's just like, how do you how do you know that? Uh,
Kids are hilarious. They are
um,
very Kids are hilarious.
yeah, it's yeah, I'll save that for later. So do you have anything else you would like to share?
Um, Separated Sisters is coming soon on Lifetime. Uh, the day and premiere is to be determined, but I will. Anybody who follows me on the IG, everybody loves Chris. You'll find out. Ride Hard will be coming soon as well. You'll find out about that. I've got several projects coming out. We're just waiting for the release dates and trailers. So as soon as all of that comes out, I will absolutely share with the world.
Thank you so much for answering a few questions for our readers and viewers. And thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow Atlanta Film and TV on Instagram at Atlanta Film and TV and subscribe to our website at atlantafilmandtv.com. I'm Andisa Johnson. Have a great day.